Hi everyone. I think this is the 8th installment of viewer Q&A. So here we are today. We're going to start with someone had asked me to share about how I work with my guidebooks, as in like, do I make notes in them? Do I highlight? Do I do things like that? Specific things I want to remember, etc. And I love this question. So I'm going to show you all my my Bible of Tarot guidebooks. This is my original Phantasmagoria guidebook. And it is falling apart. As you can see, like the binding has broken despite me taking very good care of it. But I just wanted to share, yes, I mark up my guidebooks like crazy. And as you can see in this particular guidebook, I've gone through over the years and highlighted or asterisked or, marked for myself different areas. So there's actually different like pen color, highlighter color over time. I have notes and significators when I was, really connecting with that for the people in my life that I'm, that are part of my family. I make notes about certain goddesses that I, either Ian has mentioned or that I feel like are connected to a specific sign. So I absolutely do mark up my, my guidebooks. I think, to me, I love the idea of like, I know that since literally years before I had Vincent, I have been writing in this book. And I feel like it's filled with my magic as well as the magic of the deck itself and Ian's magic. And it just feels like this really beautiful symbiotic kind of dance that ends up happening. That every time I open the guidebook, I'm connecting with that, right? So to me, it's very much a magical, it's kind of like a book of shadows, right? I just wanted to show one thing here so you can give yourself permission, but I gotta find it, hold on. Now I can't find it. If you're a visual learner like me, here it is. Like I literally went through and wrote down everything in the Tree of Life so that I would remember the connections, the associations, and start to build a pathway in my mind to just how the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life work in conjunction with the tarot. So yeah, I think there's something really magical about writing things down in guidebooks and being able to come back and reference them. And I don't do it in every guidebook, and certainly not in guidebooks that I'm not really connected to, but like my Murder of Crows tarot, a lot of my Alana Fairchild decks I have notes in. And I just love the idea of like coming back and revisiting something from a fresh perspective, Like you come back and you had written something down about maybe like in this guidebook, maybe about a specific archangel or a form of deity. And then you come back and you look at it in a new way and you get to add another layer and write something down off of that. And so it just builds and builds and builds. Now, of course, I also write in my journal every day in regards to my daily draws. So I also have my journals that hold that magic too. So it's just this like beautiful dance that I love the idea of like building off of and being able to revisit and understand and create like your own language with your decks as well. So if this is something that intrigues you and you're new to tarot, I would say try creating a tarot journal and explore what it's like to just specifically write about one deck in that journal, or maybe it's multiple decks, but you have a certain structure associated with how you're going to keep track of that. Like all of that is part of building your practice, and it helps you get to know your cards better. And it also just creates this beautiful relationship. I'm like in talking about relationship mode today, aren't I? Because I just did the video on connecting with deity. But this is my guidebook. Much loved, much worn, and I love her all the more for it. So this one's really special. Okay. Next question. Someone asked me to talk about past life readings and their purpose in my work. And I thought this was a really, really great question. So I do offer past life readings. I always work with them intuitively. It's not something that I advertise from the standpoint of, I think, and I've had very pivotal past life sessions in my own journey at very specific points in times, guys. Yeah. Points in times on my journey that have really impacted me powerfully, like were the best affirmation I could ever have had for why I was going through what I was going through and what I was learning. So I do think that they are deeply valuable. They're a very important part of a spiritual path for someone who, especially for someone who's really focused on their spiritual journey and resolving karma in their life. But I don't like the idea of, oh, tell me what I was in a past life, or like everybody was Cleopatra, you know, or everybody was a rock star, or everybody was whatever. I don't believe in that. I think a lot of us have many very normal lives where we explored a lot of karma, and that's sometimes in those lives where a lot of that work happened that's very impactful and makes a huge difference in furthering, wow, words today, our soul's evolution, our spirit's evolution, our journey, why we chose to incarnate. It's serving the purpose of helping us to grow. So I don't like to focus on like, oh, tell me about my past lives. That's not what I think past life readings are for. Past life readings are to help us understand a karmic root cause of an issue or of an area in our lives where we know there's something more going on there. So past life readings, I love to do them in regards to that because I like to get into the karmic root cause of why something keeps repeating and why you've carried something forward to finish the lesson in this current life. And your point of power is always where you are currently. Your point of power isn't 5 lives back. There's wisdom that you can bring from that life to the table here, but your point of power is in this life, in this body. So my past life readings are always focused on that. What's the lesson? What happened in regards to the karmic aspect of the lesson? And what gifts can I interact with consciously from that past life in this life to help me resolve the karma fully while I'm incarnated now as this person? So that's their purpose in my work, and that's always the focus. Now, off of that, if I'm doing energetic work with a client, I will at times journey into past life experiences with them, but that I consider like a psychic surgery, and I only do that on very rare occasions. As I said, I have had someone do that with me, a teacher of mine, at a specific point in time in my journey, and it was very healing. And but again, the focus was the point of power in the now, not getting stuck in that life or my life sucks now because of that life. Like that's not helpful. So past life work should always be constructive and helpful, and it should be about where we are now, not living back in that time. It's helping us achieve another layer of understanding in regards to our soul's purpose, right? And how I go about doing that past life reading is always an intuitive pull. Very rarely do I use a set spread for that. So I can't really give you an idea of that. There's plenty of options with past life spreads online. And I do have one that I curate for clients who are in a mentorship package with me. But that's very much detailed to each specific client. And so I don't have like a generic one to throw out there for you. But intuitively, just going to the cards and asking for insight into that karmic lesson, and then the past life where maybe we didn't finish that story or we didn't resolve a thread, that in this life we've chosen to finish that story, to resolve that thread. Like looking at those specific things with the cards will probably be very helpful if that's an area that you're exploring on your path at this time. Next question. Do I work with spirit familiars? So I'm taking spirit familiars to be spirit animal entities or those who have passed that I'm working with. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to really quickly look it up and make sure that I'm not. Pause for a second with me, guys. that I don't have the wrong definition. A spirit that maintains regular contact with a person, sometimes acting in service or guardianship or providing of information and instruction. So I would take that. So how I would describe that is like a spirit guide that I was walking closely with. So I'm glad I looked that up because it's not spirit animals. So do I work with a spirit familiar? I would term that as a guide. I do feel that I have very intimate guides who are protective in nature, and that I have a very daily practice and connection with. So yes. And how do I build that relationship? How did I build that? I just uploaded a video on how to connect with deity. If you have questions about that, I would watch that video and get some insight into how you can build a relationship with a spirit familiar. I think it is very much a relationship. So it's about time and attention. And there's certainly been spirit energies that have hung out with me that I've decided I don't want around for the long term. And so I've done protective work around that as well. I always think, again, the point of power is within us. We are not victims of spirit energies working with us, right? So do I work with them? I would say yes. I wouldn't call them a spirit familiar though. I would call them a guide. And for me, and spirit animals very much hold that energy. Like if you spent any time with me at all, you know, turkey, vulture, and ravens and crows and owls are really, really big guides that I work with, that, and they give me messages and signs all the time. And I do consider them protective energy around me. So I would catalog that as a spirit familiar as well. Okay. How do you find a trauma and shame root, where it came from? Do I have any techniques with that? Okay. I remember this question. So, first and foremost, I'm going to say, you have to trust your own intuition. This is just advice. I'm not responsible for what you do. Let's see what else is in, let me go through the disclaimer. You should seek out therapist or a counselor's advice if you really feel stuck around something. That being said, if you're in a situation where you also want to provide a tarot supportive practice of this, or if you are looking at this on your own to begin your journey here with it, but you can't figure out what the root is, there's a few ways in with this. So the question was specifically like an area of trauma or shame, but like you can't quite access it. My way into that would be looking at a pattern that I keep repeating in my life where a feeling of shame comes up for me. So let's say that I have a habitual way of responding to an experience in a friendship, a relationship, or a situation with a family member, or even in a work environment. Like, as an example, let's say I start jobs and then I bail on them really quick, right? And while I'm sure in this, like I'm using this as a pretend situation here, okay? But so while, let's say I'm aware that there were some job situations that were toxic and I should have removed myself from that. That was good. But I can see that I have a pattern. Maybe it's like at the 3rd month mark every time I bail, right? Or the 3-week mark, or whatever it is. You want to be like a detective in your behaviors when you're trying to discover this, because that's going to help you find the pattern. The pattern is a coping mechanism that you develop to deal with a form of trauma or something that really was impactful for you in childhood, right? That now as an adult, unconsciously, you're trying to avoid that at all costs, right? By a certain behavioral response. Or maybe it's a toxic belief you always come back to, like people always leave me, or I will always be alone, right? And then you find, as you watch yourself like a detective, you see where you actually create that scenario again and again for yourself. So those are, you want to be a detective without judgment. Look at that. Find the pattern. Find a pattern that you feel comfortable, in quotation marks, exploring. So not one that causes the shame or the freak out meter to go off the charts, because you're not in a space of being able to be grounded with yourself in that. But you want to find something where like you're aware of it, you see it, but you feel ready to tackle it, right? So let's say I want to tackle this pattern of I always bail on jobs, right? This is where now you can do shadow work. And I have a whole series on shadow work, so I'm not gonna re-go over that here, but you can reference those videos. I'll try to remember to put the link down below. And you can turn to tarot. So what you can do with this is grab your deck and say, why do I keep repeating this pattern of bailing on these jobs? Why do I keep bailing, right? Because that's the root. Like, something makes you want to bail, right? Why do I keep bailing? And then draw a card. Okay, I'm afraid of longevity and legacy. I'm afraid of being trapped. Then I would ask again, okay, what am I afraid of in being trapped? What's inside of being trapped? What's inside of being trapped? 8 of Swords, 7 of Wands. I don't have my own autonomy. I'm forced to do other people's will. I can't speak my own truth. I can't live my life the way I feel I need to. Then I'd keep going with that. And then I would say, okay, where did this originate in my childhood, guys? Like, where did this pattern originate in my childhood? 6 of Cups, happened young in childhood around giving and receiving. I probably had a parent that felt like I should give them everything and deny myself, creating a situation where I begin things by promising that I'll do whatever anyone wants, but then I can't honestly fulfill that because I'm only human, and so I bail in order to protect myself. See, so you go. And this, again, as I said, in conjunction with therapy, or I know the person who asked this question said that they can't afford that right now. You want to make sure you're really grounded when you do this work, and you want to take your time. It will not be as fast as I'm demonstrating it here. It should not be. I don't recommend that you do this quickly. This is for the sake of time in the video. You want to go into how the pattern repeats, why it does, where it originated. Then, and notice 2 of Cups is at the bottom of my deck. Then you want to go in. You want to imagine yourself, see yourself, visualize yourself as that person, that little being who is trying to maneuver in this dynamic. And as an example here, you want to hold them. You want to offer them love and understanding. And you want to recommit to yourself in regards to how we can now move forward, consciously aware of this pattern, and choose to interact differently. Let's say you want to know, how do I interact differently? You can go to your tarot. You can literally say, now that I'm aware of this pattern, now that I've done inner child work around this, or I'm in the midst of doing inner child work, how can I start to shift this pattern for myself? High Priestess, trust my intuition when a situation is not going to serve me, and go with my no right away instead of longing to be accepted or have the safety and security of a job and promising the moon when I know the situation's not going to serve me in the long run. So you see how you work through, and you use the tarot as the tool that it is to give yourself the clarity in regards to healing and integrating patterns and of trauma and shame. So your first thing is you're going to look for the pattern, going to explore the pattern, get to the root of where consciously at this time you're ready to see this pattern starting. So if you've done this before, you might revisit it in 5 years' time and go back even farther. And then you want to work on the integration piece and the positive steps that can be taken going forward, always offering yourself compassion, grace, and understanding. And if other people in your life can't be on board for being compassionate with you as you move through that, that may be another piece you decide to look at in shadow work. So those are the techniques that I would recommend in regards to looking at these specific areas, but when you can't get a solid feel for like, where did that originate? So you use the tarot and you use pointed specific questions of the tarot to get into that time period, okay? So I hope that this provides clarity to the viewer who had asked about this. I do understand sometimes, you know, we're in situations where we're not able to afford the level of mental health care or assistance in our personal journeys that we would like to be able to invest in. We do still have options, but again, I'm always going to encourage you to do this in conjunction with therapy and with someone who can really hold space and be supportive of you while you need to be gentle with yourself around this shadow work. So This has been the 8th installment of viewer Q&A, guys. I hope you are all doing well. It's gray and rainy here again, but I hope wherever you are, it's sunny and you get to spend some time in nature today. I'm sending you so much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video.